Dear guests, welcome to our last but not least session of the day. This session was not written by ChatGPT. Generative AI remains a hot topic, transforming the financial services sector rapidly. What steps should the industry take to stay abreast of these changes? To discuss all this and much more, please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Naeem Aslam, columnist at NASDAQ and CIO at Zaye Capital, who will introduce his panel. Naeem, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Come on, guys. The end of the day.
It's an absolute pleasing, plum pleasure to have so much wealth on this particular panel. And in terms of a discussion, we'll be taking two different angles. We'll be speaking from the perspective of operations with generative AI, and I will also be taking the conversation along the side of like how trading and generative AI can really work. And then because the panel is so diverse, we have individuals on the panel who have already been involved in the venture side of the business. So we'll be also discussing some part of that one as a VC, involved in that particular space, how they are really getting involved and what they're really looking at. Very briefly about myself. 15 years in the investment banking experience, worked as a hedge fund trader for Boney. I write for NASDAQ, CNN, and Forbes, and I also work as a CIO for Zaye Capital Markets. Now, I will ask my esteemed fellow panelists to please introduce yourself and how are you involved in the industry. And we'll start from you, Alex, and then we'll walk from there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me and excited to be here. Before I answer your question, as a large language model, that's a joke. I would like the audience to tell me if they have talked ever to ChatGPT. Raise your hand if you've, okay. What % of you have gotten financial advice from ChatGPT? At least, no, you're just touching your hair. Okay. Well, I hope the answer to that changes actually in a couple of years. How many of you have fallen in love with ChatGPT by accident? Also nobody? That'll change too. Okay, that's not a joke. It's very, it's emotionally intelligent LLM. I'm Lex. I'm the managing partner of a venture fund called Generative Ventures, where we invest at the intersection of fintech, artificial intelligence, and Web3 financial settlement networks. So I get all of the venture bingo crossed off. My career spans consensus and crypto, quite a bit of time in DeFi, as well as fintech in digital wealth. And I started my career at Lehman Brothers, so I hold a deep affection for financial institutional failures.
Thank you.
Great. I hope I'm not going to be the first one to fall in love with ChatGPT. My name is Toby Olshanetsky. I'm the CEO of Atomix. I've been building enterprise software startups for more than 20 years, actually 8 startups until now. And for the last 10 years, I've been playing very deeply with AI way before it was sexy. And I'm bringing to the table vast knowledge about the intersection between cybersecurity, data management, and how actually to use AI to your benefit.
So my name's Andrew Lane. I am the CEO of Acuity Trading. Acuity Trading was founded about 10 years ago. And before that, I worked for the Wall Street Journal and Dow Jones, where I got into the world of natural language processing, which is one of the precursors to large language models and what we talk about today. I launched Security Trading, and our first product was around the field of NLP, or sentiment analysis, looking at vast swathes of news and text. And my company has evolved a lot, and we too are very interested in ChatGPT and how we can use it to elevate our products and such forth.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Morgan. I am CEO and founder of an AI consulting company, which I founded 10 years ago. So that was back in the days before we had any kind of frameworks, basically just hand coding everything in Python. So I've seen a lot of changes up until including the implosion of OpenAI over the weekend, so I didn't get much sleep. But yeah, I'm happy here to talk about AI and financial services.
Thank you. So Lex, I'm going to begin with you. Being in the venture space, in the light of what happened over the weekend and whether Microsoft is going to be in terms of a competition and everything else, but as an investor in this particular area, where is your focus? Now, keep that in mind that I believe a lot of panelists and our audience would believe that although you've advocated that they will use generative AI and then ChatGPT very, very soon, but what I've been listening since this morning from a number of CEOs that we are quite far from the actual use of that. So as an investor, what is the criteria? What is your focus within this generative AI area?
I like that sprawling context. If I were a large language model, I would be confused. But thankfully, I'm not, so I can navigate it to completely avoid your question and talk about whatever I want. Which is going to be, trying. I think there's two issues, right? One is trying to make sense of the absolute parity of the fact that you have all these people who are brilliant people arguing about philosophically aligning these enormous machine intelligence models trained on the internet, so that the machine intelligences don't turn us all into paper clips and gray goo, and they literally can't get 6 people to align on how to not destroy $80 billion worth of value. I mean, there's never been a faster and bigger self-own than OpenAI. It's incredible. But putting that aside, I'd say, to answer the question of substantively, what do we look at? It's such a broad area. It's like investing in an internet. We're an internet fund, or we're a crypto fund, or we're a VR fund. It almost doesn't have meaning. You have to kind of have specifics about what your concepts are and what your thesis is. I think one distinction that we're seeing that's emerged is the distinction between very big capital outlays in competing for the foundational models, like OpenAI, and kind of the games that come with that. And in that game, you're going to have primarily very large players who can participate and win, because it costs $100 million to train ChatGPT v4. V5 is probably going to be $250 million, and so on and so forth. So I think it's, in my view, some of the largest models in that proprietary pioneering is going to be done by companies that can afford it, which unfortunately means the big tech firms. Unfortunately for finance as well, for those of you who are paying any attention to what's going to happen. But I think outside of those foundational models, you also have all the developer tooling, that the infrastructure to plug into them and build around them. Then you have all of the applications that plug into the developer tooling, right? So those applications are going to focus on go-to-market and acquiring customers. The developer tooling is going to focus on being performant, being easy to integrate, and we look a lot at that. We also are very interested in the open source themes. So this is where, for me, Web3 and AI intersect, where yes, you have very large centralized models which are extremely performant, but you also have an incredible open source community where the pace of improvement is getting faster and faster, and the quality is keeping up. But you have splintering, so figuring out how to organize all of those into a coherent thing, again, goes into the developer space. The last thing I'll say is that I think that the narrowest sort of story about AI is a story about productivity. It's not a story about alignment and science fiction and the moon and Elon Musk's Twitter escapades. It's a story about, our productivity is going to go up per person for some people, and for others it's going to go to zero because you'll be unemployed. But for the people, that do get enhanced digital productivity, the question for me is, where does that incremental GDP go? Where does that value from machine labor go to settle? And it can go into Google, it can go into Microsoft, it can go into open source networks. And so we're looking at the money layer for artificial intelligence, broadly speaking.
Okay. So it's more about joining or making the bridge between the legendary system and using the technology to make it a little bit more efficient. Would that be correct? So the use of artificial intelligence, the products or the areas that you are very much focused on? Because I wanted to pinpoint the area. What in the finance
The money
area?
systems for artificial intelligences, when artificial intelligences end up supplanting human productivity because they're better at labor.
Okay. Andrew, I still remember your presentation in Cyprus was earlier this year. You talked about something at the time was quite unique because it was about sentiment analysis, right? And then the use of artificial intelligence in your presentation that you talked about. Could you please walk us through how far you have gone in relation to sentiment analysis? Because, like, for instance, from a trading perspective, when I look at the data, for me, the narrative of biasness in the, as he's mentioned, and a lot of people have concern with the relation to artificial intelligence and how the data is trained and everything else. Could you just walk us through how your sentiment analysis is done, or how do you think artificial intelligence can actually add a lot of value in the sentiment analysis, please?
Yeah. So at the core, the way I look at it is text is a means for human beings to translate their thoughts onto paper or computers. And then sentiment analysis is part of a family of products or such forth, where you take that text and turn it into numbers and then make use of those numbers in different products. Now, the way that I got involved in many years ago is taking financial news and looking for the sentiment in the news and then passing that to traders who use that in a systematic way. And there are, broadly speaking, 3 ways in which we use sentiment: bag of words, machine learning type of sentiment, and price-defined sentiment as well. But once you can define the sentiment, then there's all sorts of other information within a piece of text. So the geography, the people, and you get that information and turn it into numbers. And then you pass those numbers through whatever program, whether it's for compliance, whether it's for trading or such forth. And much of that is used within large language models and precursors to that. But in traders, right at the beginning, they would literally take, there's a sentence about Apple, and it has positive words surrounding it, and off we go, and we can trade that. But it's got a lot more complicated now, looking at inference across different assets. So, a basic example someone was talking about to me yesterday in a hedge fund was taking the earnings calls. And taking the voice of the earnings calls transcripts are quite an old thing now in the world of trading. But you have earnings calls where people are talking about what their company is up to, and those are then transcribed at the speed of of a computer into text, and then they're sifted for sentiment. And then this guy was saying, well, I can't trade off Apple anymore, but what I can do is I can see anything that is mentioned within the Apple earnings call that might affect Meta or Amazon. Maybe they're talking about supply chain issues in China, and you can trade other stocks, but doing that all within milliseconds. And so the text becomes the foundation of what we're doing and trying to understand the world of trading. It's a way of getting information from a company into the equity price. And that's what we've been working on for many years, both in the retail sphere, what we're talking about today, but also on the institutional side with systematic hedge funds.
And you know, it's interesting that you mentioned Apple, because when during the last earning, the sentiment, because we look at exactly the words, so how many, we will put some keywords within those earning call, and then we will measure how many times that particular word is mentioned in the earnings call, and then that will give us some sort of a prediction where the company is going to go. Now, Apple used not only twice the word artificial intelligence in their earning, right? So what I wanted to understand from your perspective, from your experience, or any comments in that one is that how could you use artificial intelligence by gathering those particular numbers and then compare it with some sort of a historic data or with some sort of a history behind it to come up with a little bit of a better decision with the help of artificial intelligence that can help me to make a better decision based on what artificial intelligence is really going to give me, that this is what came from from Apple's earning. Any comments or what your thoughts are?
Well, I mean, sentiment analysis and the use of like saying, well, is always compared to the past. And there was one mention I spoke about it earlier, price-dependent sentiment, that looks at how prices reacted to certain words. They don't look at words as positive or negative, just at how they move the price. Now, in earnings calls, it's a very interesting subject we were talking about last week. They're very much predisposed events. The CEO comes on and he talks in a certain way, and he has analysts that call in and ask certain questions of him and his team, and they're very sterile environments. And I would imagine the PR agency behind the CEO is trying to keep it very incredibly sterile, so the CEO or the financial officer doesn't go off track and start talking about things he shouldn't do. And that, and also on the printout and the press releases especially, you know, press releases are really managed text that's looked over, and, you know, so there's no issues within that. Now, how do we as traders try to understand that and get value from that if it's a really computed document beforehand? And one way we can do is compare it to previous events, like marginally that call or the tone of voice, is it slightly more positive compared to previous ones? And then we say, well, previous ones, we can look at the last 100 earning calls or whatever it may be. And when you have the resources that we have now, you can do immense calculations on what's happening within these calls and these press releases and such forth.
It's interesting. I'm going to go to you, Peter, and I'm going to come back to you from the brokerage perspective, because he mentioned the word tone, right? Now, tone, I don't know whether you are talking from the concept of the words that they're using or actual tone, because they're two different things. And then sometimes I can say whatever I want to say, but if my tone is not matching that, someone could understand that what they are doing or what they're saying is just complete fluff. Actually, there is nothing. Peter, could you help us to understand that, if that is how AI will really evolve in that area?
Yeah, that's a valid signal, actually, tone. So basically what these large neural networks are doing is just picking up signal and looking for patterns based on the data that's coming in and the data that they've been trained on. So these large language models, like someone said earlier, they're trained, they cost 100 million to train, 2 trillion parameters. They're trained on all the information publicly available on the internet. And then they are fine-tuned within companies like Bloomberg and JP Morgan and hedge funds, et cetera, private equity companies, on their own specific proprietary data. And those are called custom models. And once we've trained on, say it's an earnings report with fit facts and figures and tone, right? All of this goes into the neural network, trains it, and then that's called the training part, and then the inference is when we have a new trading call. We've trained it on all the historic ones going 20 years back or whatever we can get our hands on. Then it will compare tones. That's all of these things are just bits, ones and zeros, whether that's tone or data, numbers from the actual figures from the annual, returns. It doesn't really distinguish. 1 and a 0 doesn't care, right? What we're looking for here is patterns, and this is what these large language models do. They do them faster, they do them more accurately than our little 3-pound piece of meat on our shoulders.
Yeah, that's answered very well, really, because that's exactly what I was really referring to. Because from the tone, you can actually gather something by using those artificial intelligence tools where the things are going to be actually going. And if they are correct, if the CEO is saying that is what exactly going to happen. Toby, speaking of that one, now from the broker's side of things, so there's one thing where you sit as a trader and then you take what Andrew and Peter have said, and then you make your decision and then you execute. But from the trader's perspective, the liquidity and everything else, that's where you can get absolutely hammered. Could you a little bit put more light on that one from the operations perspective?
Definitely. So first of all, I would like to say something. I heard the previous session and everything that's going around on the web. AI is here as a new tool. You need to understand that the AI, once you're using it correctly, it's basically going to be your co-pilot when you're running your business. You don't need to be afraid of it. The main problem with AI, Gen AI or LLM models, etc., it's because if you think about it, it's like what we call idiot savant. It means that it's very, very smart on one thing, and it's totally clueless on other things. And if you're trying to ask questions, like we said, did you ask questions to the AI models, and you're getting stupid answers, it's not because the engine is not correct, it's because the way that you created or tailored those questions are in the wrong way. So once you understand how to use the AI model, then basically you are opening a new way of opportunities for you as brokers or traders of becoming a much, much better version of yourself. First of all, a quick answer. In our platform, we're using sentiment analysis and tone for emotion detection. So we actually took all the LLM models and the Gen AI models, etc., and we created like a line detective machines in real time that when the brokers are talking with the customers, they know exactly in real time if the customers are into the deal, are out of the deal, if they're interesting to buy, yes or no. And this is with tone analysis and sentiment analysis. This is actually taking the Gen AI to your benefits. Now, regarding how traders or brokers can use the AI, so I actually went to all the brokers that we are working with and actually challenged them, what's the best way for you to use the generative AI? And I was shocked to get 9 different points of actual traders and brokers and financial organizations that using Gen AI for them as the new secret weapon when they are going to the market. So first of all is all about market prediction. When you're trying to talk to your customers, you're trying to explain to your customer where the market is going to go, etc. So it's either that you are taking historical records or historical analysis, and you don't have the manpower to actually do a wide research. Using the new Gen AI and ChatGPT engines, you can get really, really quick, very accurate prediction model based on the customers that you're talking. So this customer, it might be that he prefers different type of strategy or different type of risk as opposite to the other customers. So adding all of those parameters into the equation when you are asking those questions to the different AI models can give you much better tools that you can provide your customer. That's the first one. Second thing
what's the name of that particular product?
It's market analysis and prediction.
No, so has someone actually generated that product?
They're building by themselves.
So for instance, Lex has traded oil, right? Or he's traded something else. So the model can look at his trading patterns, and then it can tell all the mistakes that he has made.
Correct. And it's actually very good also for training. One of the biggest problems in training new brokers or training new traders is how do you actually train them in a safe environment, like a flight simulator for traders. So using the AI engines based on historical data or actual tradings, you can actually simulate live customers asking for questions or asking for products to sell. And you can ping pong the answers and questions with those models, and you can actually get a better broker or agents for your organization. So that's another thing. Sentiment analysis, we talked a lot about it. This is a key issue. You know, it's the basic element of the LLM models that you can use. And if you can master the sentiment analysis of every conversation that you have with your customer, and also internally in your organization, you can boost your ROI dramatically. But you just need to put the efforts into it. And by the way, it's very, very easy. There's a lot of open sources. There's a lot of product out there that can allow you to do it. You just need to take the time and do it, and don't be afraid of AI. Another very important thing is regulation. Everybody here in the event, and I'm talking quite a lot in the booths, are afraid about the new regulation, or what's going to be the new risk, or how I'm going to change into that. If you are using those models into you, learning the regulation, learning the way how you're working, you can actually create, again, an autopilot or a co-pilot for you to review all the different regulation that is related to your specific business, and basically become like the police officers of your organization and raise flags if somebody, let's say if your agent is talking out of script, or if your agent is saying something which is not allowed by regulation, like you must buy without all the disclosures, or saying anything wrong. This can create red flags, and this can monitor everything in your organization in real time, and basically protect yourselves and make your life much, much easier when working with regulation. So this is basically it.
Alex, I'm going to go to you. And in your venture world, you invest in artificial intelligence space, in AI space, right? Do you?
Yes.
Do you actually have a product on your side which helps you using artificial intelligence to tell you, yeah, that particular product is better than in comparison to that product? Because that's I wanted to see if you are actually using that to find which product you wanted to invest in.
This is like asking Coca-Cola for the secret sauce.
Let me try to think about something useful to say here. So I think novelty is very difficult. Well, kind of one step back is like, we're in a really special moment. Like it's really special. I really hope that everybody, I mean, it sounds like everybody's tried to use ChatGPT. I hope you go back to it and try again and push at it the things that you think it doesn't know.
I think it's addictive.
It's what?
It's addictive.
Yeah, yeah. You know, anything's addictive if you have a problem. So. I'm kidding, but I don't know. I haven't fallen in love with ChatGPT. It was a New York Times reporter. Still alive, I think. Okay, so it is a magical moment because we are testing the capability of the LLM, and you can actually, if you interact with it from lots of different sides, you actually start getting that intuition for how the thing works. And the answer is, it's not that I need some special app called Venture Analyst, or some special app that's called Agent Trader, or some special app that's called, you know, Lawyer or whatever. Like, there's one app, and it's a giant mathematical brain that is the internet. That's it. It's done. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing additional to chip in to make it better. It's already there.
I don't necessarily agree. I tell you why. As a trader, I'm not a programmer, right? So I don't know how to program if I wanted to backtest anything, what Andrew will do on their platform stuff. But
Okay.
by using ChatGPT, I will ask ChatGPT to give me the code, and I can put in Atomix or I can put in something else. So I would use that particular program written by ChatGPT to do it. So I wanted to know.
So I appreciate the disagreement, but I'll finish out my point, which is, I do use it in my work every single week. I have a large newsletter called FinTech Blueprint. 200,000 people read it. I write a weekly take, and I don't want to do the summary, so my friend ChatGPT, I say, you are a FinTech writer. People who read it are entrepreneurs and investors. Can you please give me this in 5 sentences? Use a clear and concise tone. It does it. I take it. I put it in. If I wanted it to be funny, it would be funny. If I wanted it to be a Dr. Seuss poem, it would make me a Dr. Seuss poem of all my stuff, right? So that's kind of number one. Number two, I played around with their agents, which are basically just customized prompts this past week. And I made one for asset allocation. So I had a wealth manager, just to see. So I took it through a wealth management workflow. I said, I have this client, they're 40 years old, they're conservative, they're buying a house, they don't want this, can you give me a pie chart? It gave me a pie chart. I said, how come you don't have gold and real estate in there? And it said, well, this is a conservative investor, but if you really want it, here's the updated pie chart. I said, can you give me the Sharpe ratio for this? It said, okay, it gave me the Sharpe ratio. I said, how sensitive is it to interest rates? It plotted in Python the interest rate chart. I said, that's great, but I don't really believe in average returns. Can you do simulations? How many simulations can you run at the same time? It said, well, 5 to 10, more would be hard. It ran me 5 to 10 simulations with a chart. Then I turned it into a financial plan and put in costs and income. This is an idiotic and super simple use case. It does it already. It is trivial. If you're running financial planning software, I mean, it's like,
You can create a robo-advisory based on that.
You don't get it. Not you. It's not you can create a robo-advisor. It's that it's already been created and it's done. There's nothing to create. It's just a skin to put on top. And it's the same thing for finance, but it's also the same thing for doctors. You don't have to create a robo-doctor. The LLM is a robo-doctor. You just have to create the tuning on top so that people can use it. So I'm being a little bit radical in my description, but I want people to get the flavor for it's really kind of a Promethean moment, and all you got to do is dig a little bit, because inside of it is already the functionality that you're imagining.
100%. Thank you. Peter, I wanted to build what he said over here. So the use, as a consultant, as an AI consultant to brokerage companies, to financial companies, and to fintech, how are you advising them with the use of AI in the risk management so that we don't have another Lehman moment or another financial crisis, or even for the black swan event, how to really prepare them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, just sort of building on top of what Lex was just describing, I go into my clients or my consultants go into the clients, and we sit down with them, we ask them, what problems they might want to solve, if it's risk management or portfolio optimization or some sort of trading algorithm. And then we say, okay, what data have you got? And it's a given, right, that we're using, GPT-4 or some other large language model. And basically, what we're doing here, and what Lex was referring to, is that we fine-tune these foundation models using the customer data. So that would, in this case, be risk management data. And it would be unique to that firm. Like Lex says, yeah, it's trained on everything, right? That we have got, companies like Google and OpenAI and Microsoft have managed, and Amazon have managed to get their hands on. But that's not proprietary data, so we have to tune it a little bit more on the proprietary data to really, basically get a co-pilot that's as good as the best human, right, in risk management, right? We want risk management GPT. We want portfolio optimization GPT, And that's what OpenAI on their Dev Day did 2 weeks ago. They announced, they're going to have all these GPTs, which are custom models. So, yeah, we're there now, actually. And it is a Promethean moment. It's an incredible point in history, despite the fact that OpenAI just imploded.
They really fine-tune themselves.
They can, and that's where the agent comes in. I agree. Yeah.
Andrew, I wanted to go with the last topic. We got about 6 minutes left on this one, about the compliance on that one and the use of LLM on the brokerage side. Now, my question to you is that, of course, how brokers can make their compliance department a lot more effective by using LLM and by using generative AI and everything else. But at the same time, the customers, they can also use the same tools to fool brokers with respect to compliance. Do you have any comments, or what's your narrative on that?
Actually, I do have a comment on the side of that, but I think New York just published, maybe London as well, saying that people have to really understand the intelligence you're using if you're going to use it within finance. It is a concern. In terms of being able to use it with compliance, I mean, it's the same as what we've just been saying. The data goes in, and you can alter the model, or like add on to the model and customize it. And there will be many use cases for in compliance. And I'm sure I have no idea, but to be honest, but I'm sure there's a way in which users could use it to fake the system. But I think someone else is probably a better expert on the compliance side than I am.
Actually, I've got an example for that. One of the biggest threats to organization is that internal employees is using different models to make decisions. So one of the financial organizations that we were working with, basically he had a team inside of the organization actually uploading different type of questions and models, like what Lex just said, about creating a new strategy with interest rate. And everything that you ask the LLM or the Gen AI stays there. Now, there was a group of, I won't call them hackers, there was basically a group of smart people that was trying to see if there was something uploaded from this financial organization to the cloud. And they started asking questions out of it. And suddenly came out a report that basically exposed the entire strategy of this financial organization regarding interest rate. So then, when you're asking back this financial organization, what is the minimum, what is the maximum, you know already the red lines. So talking about compliance, there's a whole new type of threats that is coming out there. And there's a way to protect yourself on that. But you need to understand, everything that you ask stays there.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah.
So that's something to remember.
Right. Lex, again, the venture space, I'm going to come back. NVIDIA, Microsoft, right, the two big giants in that particular space. But anything which is not public and which is catching your eye, briefly, please.
I think I'm in a very niche space. You know, I'm less interested. I think it's very capital intensive to fight over the foundational models. And I think most of the applications that are using the foundational models are unfortunately doomed to be rugged by Microsoft or OpenAI, meaning they're building on quicksand. So they need to switch to open source stuff. So I think that's a very expensive competition. I'm really interested in, you know, the money layer, the financial infrastructure of how, if AIs are building things that are being transacted back and forth, how are they going to pay each other? Are they going to wait for 3 days as money goes from from one SWIFT account to another through the correspondent banking system? Are AIs going to wait 3 days as something is faxed into a custodian machine, then to be read by an intern into a core platform to be obviously not. So we need money systems that support working at the speed of an artificial intelligence. And that's true for a lot of financial services. There are particular rails, but for the broad economy, the answer is we don't really have the rails for an AI-based world. So I guess that is to say that the types of projects that I'm looking at probably are not in the popular imagination, but things like frameworks for AI agents that execute on blockchains, that perform financial actions on blockchain on behalf of other people is interesting to me. Other things are around the provenance of media. So we have a deep fake issue where we have lots of media that's going to be false, not just pictures that are going to be false, but videos of people, their voices. Apple today is, in their augmented reality headset, to do a video meeting, takes an avatar of yourself, creates a deepfake, and manipulates your deepfake on your behalf in Apple. So if that works, there's going to have 2 billion avatars that Apple owns of other people. So provenance, meaning ownership and custody, self-custody of identity of these digital avatars, that's all kind of the Web3 themes that I'm interested in.
Peter, very briefly, just in 20 seconds, what do you think? Where is your interest, or where the company is coming from? Like, which area are you is the most busiest for you?
I'm focused on custom GPT, so that's right across the board. See, GPTs and these large language models and deep learning and neural networks are a general purpose technology, i.e. they're us, but smarter and faster. So I'm not putting a stake in, financial services or retail or science. This is completely general purpose. So as a consulting company, I have the luxury of working across verticals, and I have clients in all sorts of different verticals: self-driving cars, robotics, science, drug discovery, solar cell efficiency, that's, tackling climate change. So, in the next couple of years, despite the OpenAI implosion, the progress hasn't stopped. The company stopped, but we haven't. So, watch out. There's going to be a lot of great developments in the next couple of years.
Thank you. I wanted to thank everyone for staying back for the last session, but I wanted to say special thank to each and every single member of the panel over here, sparing time and then sharing your thoughts and your experiences. Thank you so much, and thank you.
Cheers.